Hello there, everyone. Today we are going to talk about the intricate relationship between success and failure. No, this is not me buffering the pain of failing the semester. I mean nothing like that. In fact, only you can say whether this semester is a success for you. Now, the word resilience usually denotes something like elasticity. Think of a tree bending in a storm and moving with the wind before returning to an upright position. That's one kind of resilience. A material that returns to its original shape after being stretched out or bent is also resilient. In other words, resilience is about adaptability and flexibility, taking it on new form to meet the demands of new situation without getting permanently bent out of shape. In this video, we'll be looking at the techniques to help you bounce back and adjust to new situations in your life. As business psychologist Susan Kahn notes, learning to be more resilient won't just help you survive life's bumpy ride, it will also help you to flourish. Now, in ancient Greece, merchants whose businesses failed were forced to sit in marketplaces with baskets over their heads. Seen by the crowds but unable to see them, they were ridiculed for their errors. Things weren't much better in pre modern Italy. In towns up and down the peninsula, failed businessmen were stripped naked and made to face the scorn of their jeering compatriots. Failure, in other words, has historically been treated harshly. Contemporary societies aren't quite as brutal, and yet our fear of failure lives on. But failure isn't necessarily a bad thing. Whatever the industry, professional, and organizational benefit when they learn from their failures, this is because, contrary to conventional wisdom, failure doesn't make you less intelligent or able. In fact, the most accomplished and talented individuals and institutions routinely experience failures. They recognize that as the psychologist Dennis Waitley puts it, failure isn't an undertaker, it is a teacher. Take it from basketball star Michael Jordan, one of the most successful players in the history of sports. Now, looking back, Jordan sees his career as a series of failure. He missed over 9,000 shots, 26 of which were potentially game winners. He failed time and again. That, he said, is why he has succeeded. Then there is J.K. Rowling, one of the world's most respected authors. Before Harry Potter became the global sensation it is today, her books were rejected by dozens of publishing houses. Or take Netflix, the on-demand video streaming service was first pitched to Blockbuster in 2000 for a fraction of its current value. Blockbuster turned it down. Now, these kinds of failures provide a valuable lesson on the importance of self-belief and determination. Just think of Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb. He famously regarded each failure as a step in the right direction. With all these failed attempts, he has found 10,000 ways that wouldn't work. But even though failure is so important, not everyone will respond to it in an encouraging and supportive manner. Some stakeholders like bosses or clients or teachers will inevitably be upset. So it's very important to develop a system that encourages risks and failures, but which also avoids a breakdown in relations. Call this fail fast. Okay? So the concept of fail fast comes from system design. There, it denotes a technology that immediately reports issues likely to cause serious problems further down the line. When this happens, operators are halted so that the flaw in the process can be addressed. The idea was later taken up by businessmen to describe the way they stress test products early on. This gets failure out of the way, and it can prevent years of wasted investments. This is something we can also implement in our day-to-day tasks. There's one surefire way to avoid failure. Don't try anything new, ever. Now, but playing it safe is a recipe for stagnation. We thrive when we feel challenged and excited by what we're doing. Conversely, we stop producing our best work when we get caught in a familiar routine. So why do so many of us fall into the trap of familiarity? Well, once we develop our expertise and become highly competent by mastering challenges, we suddenly become risk aversive. Now, being an expert feels good, and we're reluctant to leave the hard-worn comfort zones. After all, when we embrace a new challenge, we have to accept that we are not experts in this new area. This in turn reintroduces the scariest prospect of all, failure. This is where fail fast comes in. The idea is pretty simple. The sooner we try something new, the lower the stakes will be if we fail. This makes it easier to get the dreaded experiment out of the way and gain valuable new insights. It also means we're less likely to fail the next time around. Implementing fail fast system is increasingly important in today's work and school. As Sunny Giles argues in the New Science of Radical Innovation, the 21st century work and school environment is characterized by four factors: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, or VUCA for short. In this climate, failure is certain. The organization's best place to thrive don't just tolerate this reality; they embrace it. In practice, this means that leaders encourage experimentation and set moderate challenges. These challenges encourage creative solution while keeping the stakes tolerably low. Now, imagine you were told about a product that allowed you to reset your body and brain to healthy. It could be used every day by anyone on the planet and didn't cost a single centavo. Now, sounds too good, right? Well, here's the good news. You already have this miracle cure. It's actually called sleep. Okay, now, there are thousands of scientific reports demonstrating the health benefits of getting a good night's sleep. Unfortunately, this is something fewer and fewer of us are doing. The WHO reports that a sleep loss epidemic is sweeping through industrialized nations, including the Philippines. This is a cognitive and emotional time bomb. Have you ever worked through the night to meet a deadline and then continued working the next day? If you have, you'll know that inadequate sleep wreaks havoc on our ability to concentrate, carry out complex tasks, and acquire new information. Sleep loss also takes toll in our resilience. Without the sustenance of sleep, we're both mentally and emotionally weaker. This makes us grumpy, irritable, and much likelier to lash out. Think of an infant crying its heart out. Their mother or father might explain that they're just tired. As adults, we're socially aware enough not to throw tantrums in public, but we're just as impacted by our lack of sleep as bawling toddlers. This means it's time to reclaim our full night's sleep. The question is how, right? Well, take a leaf out of the world-renowned neuroscientist Matthew Walker's 2017 book, Why We Sleep. According to Walker, getting enough shut-eye is all about adopting a few simple tricks. If you're getting less than 7 hours of sleep at a night, Walker argues it's time to start avoiding stimulants like caffeine and nicotine. This can take up to 8 hours to work through our body, and they seriously undermine our ability to nod off. Alcohol should also be avoided. While a nightcap might make you feel relaxed, it robs you of deep sleep, the most restorative and restful part of your sleep cycle. This is also true of heavy meals eaten too close to bedtime. And remember, humans are creatures of habit. So it's a good idea to go to bed at the same time every night. Now, if you want to build your resilience, many argue you need to embrace the power of positive thinking. This is a popular idea found in self-help books, therapies, and on social media. It says that if we are positive enough, there's nothing that we cannot do, from losing weight to landing that dream job. That's there's actually nothing wrong with a can-do attitude. Of course, the reason these books and ideas are so popular is because they do help lots of people. But positive thinking isn't the only approach. Sometimes, dwelling on the negatives can just be as helpful. The key message here is that resilience isn't about just positivity. It's also helpful to think about everything that could go wrong. Granted, mulling over all the reasons you might fail doesn't sound like a compelling strategy to build resilience. But here's the thing: confronting the likelihood of falling short can actually be liberating. The notion is at the heart of Stoicism, a philosophical creed that goes back to the ancient Greeks. Now, these doctrines have two components. Now, the first is death. Stoics, as followers of the school of thought are called, emphasizes the briefness of life. This might sound depressing, but they believe this focus actually relieves us of our burden. They reason that once you concentrate your mind on the certainty of dying, it becomes easier to embrace life and not put off until tomorrow what you can do today. This also applies metaphorically. Think of what death might mean in your work or in your studies. What is the worst possible outcome? The loss of employment, failure in your semester, the loss of your reputation if you have clients or money. So if you knew that these things would eventually happen, how would that affect your choices today? Then there's the lesson of the influential Greek philosopher Epictetus, born in 341 BCE. As Epictetus saw it, few things cause more misery than changes and disruption. This is because we fear the unknown and assume the worst. So Epictetus argues that it's best to only consider the changes that you are presented with. If thinking through the worst possible outcomes is not really helping you plan for them, but just making you anxious, change tack. Stop stressing about possibilities, gossip, or what could happen. Prepare for change once it becomes a reality. Together, these lessons strike a balance, anticipate the worst and plan for it, but really focus only on on what actually is happening, not on what ifs. Now, um, when we're clear about why we're doing what we're doing, we are much more likely to be resilient. It is the sense of why that gets people through grueling 7-day weeks in the early stages of establishing their career, or signing up to online classes, or keeps them on course during a marathon. In other words, the conviction that our tasks are meaningful gives us the courage to push through adversities. Why do you go to work or why do you go to school? This profound question isn't about your need for food or shelter or getting a good future. What we're talking about here is why you go to work on a higher level or why you study on a higher level. Are you emotionally invested in what you are doing? If you are, you'll be willing to go the extra mile that guarantees both professional and academic success and personal fulfillment. You can see how this works by imagining a primary school in a city that's having economic problems. Due to government spending cuts, this school has to make do with fewer teachers. So classes get larger, which in turn leads to a spike in poor behavior amongst students. The remaining teachers are overworked, tired, and grumpy. Now, not all these teachers are alike, however. Teacher A, for example, only became a teacher after her business failed. Facing huge debts, she needed a steady salary, and this school, which is conveniently located near her home, happened to offer an easy access to training programs. Teaching was a ready answer to her personal problems. Teacher B, on the other hand, is different. A third generation educator, he is proud of his family's history and role as teachers. As he sees it, his job is about creating the next generation of thoughtful, compassionate citizens. That's something he's best placed to do as a primary school teacher. It's at this age that vital learning patterns are established, which shape kids' later schooling experience. So, which teacher is more resilient to the challenges of their work? Well, teacher B will probably cope better with this period of hardship. This is because his individual purpose aligns with the purpose of the school. His professional work furthers his personal values. Now, life is usually isn't as clear cut as this, but the point stands: purpose builds resilience. Now, the Japanese has a special word for the sense of purpose that gets you out of bed in the morning: ikigai, meaning a reason for being. This is something you do not just do for money, but also because it matters. As the saying goes, if you do something you love, you'll never have to work another day in your life. This is true enough, but first you have to find your purpose. The key message here is only you can define what kind of work is meaningful for you. Committing to a working life of purpose takes courage. Doing what matters to you, after all, is deeply personal. It might lead you down a path that will surprise your family, friends, and peers. This can cause friction, but it's worth doing all the same. We only get one chance at life. Doing what you care about is an opportunity that shouldn't be passed up lightly. The question then is how to find out what a working life of meaning and purpose would look like for you. To help you do that, let's try a couple of exercises. As we've seen, your ikigai encompasses both your personal values and your professional abilities. To find work that allows you to combine these two things, you'll need to ask yourself four questions. First off, what do you love doing? Secondly, what are you good at? Thirdly, what does the world need? Lastly, what can you be paid for? Think of your answers as a Venn diagram. You'll find your ikigai where all of these four circles overlap. You can also try a more creative approach. Imagine you are a manager at a firm that's hiring and you walk through that door. Try to describe this new team member yourself. So, what does your contribution to the company entail? Why does it matter? What are the top 3 points about your work that you will emphasize? If this is still too vague, try condensing the descriptions of why your work is important even further into a snappy 140 character tweet. Finally, here's another approach. Think about what's working well for you right now and use that as a launching pad to think about your purpose. To do this, keep a journal for a week. Each night, right before bed, write down three good things about your day. Once you have jotted this down, think about why those things went well. Chances are you'll already know what you find meaningful. This exercise will just help you bring that out into the open. So, the key message in this video is that success paradoxically means embracing failure. From Thomas Edison to Michael Jordan, history's high flyers have allowed themselves to fail. Why is it that? It's simple. Falling short is a great way of learning, and it's building resilience over time. Add psychological clarity, physical well-being, some Stoic philosophy, and a clear sense of purpose into the equation, and you'll be well set off to join them. If you want an actionable advice, try to reframe negative situations. We often look at the world in black and white terms. Some things are clearly good while others are simply bad. But reality isn't actually like this. Clouds, after all, often have silver linings. To help you notice this, try an exercise called turning obstacles upside down. The idea is to reframe difficult situations as a source of insight and development. Say you're helping a colleague or a classmate with the tasks they have been struggling with, but they're being short-tempered, uncooperative, and rude. Frustrating, right? Well, think about the virtues that this situation is helping you develop. For example, greater patience, understanding, and empathy. Now, lastly, as a personal favor for me, may I ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search for Psych Nerds in the YouTube search bar. So every week we upload psychology-related content. In our first series, we talk about common myths in the field of psychology. This week's episode explored the science of what science say about quarter life crisis. So, thank you for watching and have a great day, everyone.